All right, guys, welcome. Let's go ahead and get started. So I will make sure to, I think it'll just kind of show me the chat, but I'll also make sure to have the chat up here over in the corner. Hopefully it's not in your view because I'm only screen sharing the whiteboard. But if you need anything, raise your hand, say something in chat, unmute yourself. You guys are pretty polite, so I'm not too worried about anybody being terribly rude. So plan is today to finish chapter 5 and then start chapter 6. If we can't get through chapter 6 and 7 today and on Friday, I'll go ahead and I'll extend chapter 7's quiz due date until like next Wednesday or something like that to give us a little bit more time to catch up. So I went ahead and uploaded those videos from last week to YouTube. I'm going to do the same for this video as well. And for hopefully the rest of the videos, I finally figured out how to save to my SD card, which was the issue. I kept on running out of room on this cheap Surface. So finally put a 128 gigabyte SD card, and it's now got a new default save location. So we should be good to go in terms of recording and putting those on YouTube for you guys to look at later. So last week we started talking about GDP. We started talking about the expenditure method of GDP, right? The GDP expenditure equation, which is Y equals C plus I plus G plus NX, right? And we talked about what consumer expenditure was, how it was, the different durables, so things that last a long time, the different non-durables, so, clothing, food, bedding, and then services, which are the largest percentage of our economy and really advanced economies in general. So then we moved on and we talked about that I part of it, right? Which, is a little strange because number one, it doesn't count anything that, we think about in terms of purchasing stocks, bonds, other financial assets, right? Those are transfers of existing things, right? They usually don't correspond unless it's like an IPO, an initial public offering. They don't correspond to any increase in physical capital or production capacity, right? And so when we talk about investments in the economic sense, we're talking about the increase in capital goods. So we're talking about, either spending by firms, so fixed investments, so that'd be property, purchasing property, expanding the existing factory that you have, purchasing some more equipment, or residential investment, which is new houses and apartments. So anytime there's new houses and apartments constructed and sold, that's residential investment. And then inventory investment is a change in our unsold goods, right? So if there's goods produced yet, but not yet sold, that can be positive or negative. And so then let's jump into our government spending. So government spending here, what is it talking about when it talks about government spending? Well, in the US, a lot of the government spending is, military spending, right? So, things like fighter jets or, missiles, or the salaries we pay to the 250,000 troops that we have stationed across the world, right? All of that stuff. So, it is government spending. But what else is government spending? Well, teaching, right? So all of the stuff that we pay for in terms of teaching, my job, even though you guys pay tuition, part of the salary and part of the income of the college comes from the state government. They provide so much money every year to keep tuition low, and to subsidize that so that you guys can get good education at a great value. And then the other kind of thing, just like we never think about it, but the government building office supplies and stuff like that, office supplies and the salaries of those government workers, right? Which is huge. There's a bunch of different sectors of government. There's the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, but then there's also, the CIA with all the spies, and the NSA with, National Security Agency, right? So all of that stuff adds up. We also have like the National Forestry Service. So some of them are way more innocuous than other ones, but all of them are government spending. Now, it's important for us to remember and learn right now. And actually, this is really interesting. The book highlights this because this is one of the things that is actually part of my research that I just finished, is that this government spending excludes any what's called transfer payments. So transfer payments, these are payments made by the government either domestically or abroad So this is to local citizens, but this is also like U.S. foreign aid abroad, just all the different foreign programs that we have, any money that the foreign military spends, right? So these things they receive, so they're payments made, but no goods or services received. So domestically, this is, food stamps, which isn't even called that anymore, but it's kind of like a historical thing that's right. It's called SNAP, Supplementary Nutrition Assistance Program or whatever. Social Security. And then, abroad, this would be, the foreign aid. So US, and we have both military aid. And then we also have economic aid. And it's a lot of money. It's billions and billions and billions of dollars every single year. And sometimes it's a large amount of the recipient's government spending. And sometimes it's a large amount just of their kind of economy. And so it has some certain monetary and other repercussions, which again is what I just finished studying. So no purchase of final goods and services is involved in any of these transfer payments. And the other thing about this government debt, when we talk about the government spending, it excludes when the government has to pay interest, the government's interest payments on their debt. So just like, when we have credit cards and we have to pay interest payments on our debt, the government has a lot of debt that they've taken out over time. They have very, very low interest rates, but still low interest rates on trillions and trillions of dollars adds up. But that spending that we spend on that interest. So, am I frozen here? Okay, I'm back. Any questions on government spending? Okay. So again, we got y equals c plus I plus g plus nx. What is this nx thing? Well, this nx thing can be broken down into x minus im. What am I talking about here? I'm talking about exports. So exports, what are these things? This is any good or service that we produce here in the US. So it's a US produced good and service, but it's sold abroad. Seconds. That, wait for the program to respond. Okay, we're good. Yeah, derped on me a little bit, but I think I'm good. So it's a US produced good, but it's sold abroad. When we export things, just because of the way that, there's only so much stuff we produce at any given time, right? Exporting things reduces the amount available for consumption in the domestic economy, reduces the amount available for consumption domestically. Whereas when we talk about imports, these are purchases of non-US goods and service by US households and businesses. So, imports, it can be consumption, right? We all purchase a lot of imported clothing, right? A lot of the clothing that we purchase, if you check your shirt or especially your shoes, a lot of that is not produced in the United States, right? It's produced abroad and it's imported. We purchase it at a Walmart, right? We purchase it at a local store, or even we purchase it on Amazon, but the origin of it is not the United States. So it's consumed here, but it was produced elsewhere. So it can be consumption. So this is, shoes, clothing, even things like avocados, right? A lot of avocados, if they don't come from California, they come from where? Mexico. Those are imports. Imports can also be investment. You can, purchase some stock in a different country, and that's you purchasing a foreign investment, that's you importing that invested good. And then imports can also be government spending, right? So the government spending can be in the form of imports. We especially see this in, countries like Venezuela, right? Who, didn't have a large domestic economy. They had a lot of oil that they were selling. And so they would just import everything that they needed, the foods, the medicines, so on and so forth. And a lot of that was government. It was government funded because the government was the main oil producer. So all that revenue, as a way to kind of appease the populace and just keep the populace alive, was siphoned back into a lot of imports of foreign goods, which worked out fine until they ran out of oil and their exchange rate had a collapse at the same time. Not so good. But in the end of the day, importing things, if exporting things reduces the amount available, right? Then importing things is going to increase the amounts available. All right, let's try that again. How much did I lose? So we talked about imports. Those are the purchase of non-US goods. It could be consuming things like when we buy shoes that aren't made in America, or clothing not made in America, or avocados made in Mexico. It could be investment when we purchase foreign, stocks or bonds or whatever. And it could be government spending when the government purchases things from abroad. And it increases the total amount of domestic consumption. So that should catch us up. And hopefully my tablet will not derp out for the rest of the time here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do an example. So GDP expenditure example. So we've got a total production of 1 million cars at $15,000 each. So production is 1 million times the 15,000. Come on. And we're told that the number of cars purchased in each sector is as follows. Is that doing the same thing to you guys? I'm going to try to stop the recording. Maybe that will